High-tech engines need high-tech oils.
Kipiris is keen for another win after taking out round 2 at Portland.
Reaction time goes to Ben Bray, but Kipiris around the outside. What a run from Kipiris.
John Zapier is looking to improve on his round 2 efforts and get back into the winning form he showed in round 1.
Oh, big hole shot for Russell Pavey there, side by side across the finish line. Sparks out of both cars, but John Zapier gets there with a 4.05.
While Zapier and Kipiris have proven their dominance early in the championship, there are still 9 other drivers ready to step up to the plate.
Oh, great race, very even off the start line as far as reaction. Oh, hole shot to John Brunner. Is it going to be enough? As we see a great run for Russell Pavey. He goes through.
It's been a long time between drinks, but the Doorslammers are finally back in Tasmania.
Track's looking better now than it's ever looked by a mile, I can tell you. The new concrete launch pad and that first bit of acceleration is going to be actually on concrete. So it's amazing. There's been 16 championships in top Doorslammer racing since its inception in 1996. There's 15 of the championship winners are here this weekend. So cream of the bunch, Tassie, unbelievable, mate. And the weather down here is looking pretty sharp. As long as it stays like it is, I think you're going to see some great numbers. There's so many competitive cars here. You've seen what Zappy's been doing the last few years. You see what Kipiris is doing now. You see what Morris has done, what Benny's done. I mean, any race can be won by anyone. Everybody that toes through that gate in top Doorslammer nowadays not only wants to walk away with the trophy, they've got a damn good chance of doing it.
We're here in Tasmania for round 3 of Slamfest, and it has been a long time since the Doorslammers have been to TDRA Dragway. Big crowd starting to roll in here this morning. And of course, as we take a look at the series points after round 2, we see Peter Kipiris, 155 points leads Ben Bray, 150. Russell Pavey in third on 135. Zapier is 4th. Phillips 5. Morris Fabity 6. Victor Bray 7 and Marcus Chambers rounding out the top 8. Joining me here this weekend is Rusty Gregory. Rusty, welcome along to Tassie.
Fantastic to be here. I tell you what a fantastic little facility that they've got here down in Tasmania. We've got the first qualifying session for Top Doorslammer coming up now. We've got Tony De Felice and Big Russ Pavey taking to the track.
Well, Russell Pavey and Tony De Felice, this will be a good matchup. Of course, we see there Russ Pavey in the United Tools Corvette and Tony De Felice running this magnificent Murray Anderson built Camaro.
Yeah, Murray Anderson, he's the crew chief on this car. He's been around for a long, long time. One of the premier Doorslammer builders in the world. He's behind a lot of the big names that we see in the Slamfest series, of course. He built the cars of Victor Bray, Ben Bray, Peter Kipiris. He's had a hand in so many different race teams over the years, and it's fantastic to see him out here trying a lot of new ideas on this car for Tony De Felice.
Yeah, absolutely, certainly is. And of course, in beside, well, Russell Pavey is a name that's not traditionally associated with the Doorslammer ranks. However, in the last 2 odd years, he has really stepped up this Ken Lowe combination. Ken Lowe, of course, the crew chief and the man that is responsible for pushing Pavey from running that world's quickest Morris Minor and getting him into this Corvette.
Yeah, he's had a big hand in the construction of the car as well. I mean, Russ Pavey built this car from a kit that he got from the United States of America. Ken Lowe's had a big hand in the fuel system, setting up the engine, the drivetrain, and it's all starting to come together. Russ Pavey, he is a real threat in this Slamfest series.
We just see Ken Lowe in the background there, tapping the windscreen, letting Pavey know that he is good to go. Bringing it into stage. First qualifying session of the day. It's Felice with a big hole shot, an 0.65. Looks good and clean. Tony very, very late with the shoots. Russell Pavey goes 4.49, 2.26. Rusty, that was a wild ride for De Felice.
Absolutely, very, very late in the shoots in the braking areas. We take a look at the replay. Huge hole shot for Tony De Felice, an 0.65. That's almost psychic in qualifying. We see Russ Pavey get a little bit out of shape at the braking area. And there you go, out in front, Tony De Felice really stretches and pulls away for that big 166 mile per hour speed.
Well, 4:49.2 for Russell Pavey. He actually posts the fastest time of the first pair, as we now see Victor Bray coming in beside Morris Fabietti. Still, first qualifier, but of course the second pairing now. All the family out on the trip to Tasmania this weekend. Of course, son Benny. We've got Marie Bray, Kelly McLennan, all of the family, and of course, along with Morris Fabietti's family, Mary Fabietti, young Fabian Fabietti. So it's a real family affair.
Yeah, that's what drag racing is. It's all about family in this sport, and you don't get too many better examples of it than Victor Bray, of course. As you said, you already rattled off all the names of the family there, but then you've got the crew guys who have been with him for years and years. Guys like Graham Frawley, who have been around forever around Victor Bray's car. Then you move over to Morris Fabietti. You know, you've got Mary, his wife, who runs the merchandise trailer, does a very, very good job at that. You know, guys, Fabian Fabietti, who's been crewing on Morris's car forever. Like, these guys have just been around for so long. They know exactly what they need to do on the cars, and that's why these guys are so good. They're right at the top of their game.
Well, crew chief Graham Frawley ready to bring Victor in. And, of course, the Holden Trade Club Monaro looking $1 million down here beside the Sid Chrome 57.
Yeah, Morris is a guy who has really come up as far as the professionalism in the Doorslammer ranks has progressed over the past few years. You know, Morris comes from a sportsman background, but he's looking to lay down some solid numbers here in the first qualifier as both cars bump into stage. Great launch from Morris Fabietti. 161 and a 106 to the 60-foot time as both cars fairly tame through the braking area, and a 466 with a 7 will put him into second spot at the moment on the qualifying ladder. Victor Bray, problems from him right off the start line.
Yeah, the car just didn't get up and step up to the performance that he would have liked. In fact, even no parachutes for Victor Bray down there. We see the car just bobbing on the track as we go to a nice close-up in the replay. And we see Fabietti streaks away to go 4.66.7. Slots him into the number 2 spot at this stage.
And we keep talking about family operations. You don't get too much more family than Gary Phillips. You know, this is a guy who's been racing blown alcohol cars for a long, long time in the Lucas Oil Products Studebaker. He's got his son Shane, who's out in front. He's a crew chief on the car. Of course, Debbie Phillips as well has been there the whole way through Gary's career. And the professionalism of this team is absolutely second to none. He's going to be taking on Peter Kapiris, who is currently the number 2 in the points coming into this round. And, well, a guy who's pretty hard to beat at the moment.
Having a look at the screen, we see Narelle backing up the Kapiris brothers' Saratoga, a relatively new car for the Kapiris team. They used to campaign the Batmobile. Studebaker, Mark Brew, crew chief on this team, just spraying a little bit of fuel in. You can see that dripping from the injector hat of Gary Phillips. And you mentioned Shane Phillips. He is a smart young man. This guy, he wants to drive, but Dad has said, not at the moment. You can just do all of the tuning. Of course, Gary still oversees it, but Shane is a big, big part of that operation.
And it's fun seeing the young guys grow up around the sport, you know. Shane is very much in the same vein as Benny Bray, as we see Gary Phillips get off the line very, very nicely. 102 to the 60-foot timers for Gary. Late on the chutes as well, but a 422 with a 2 at 284 kilometres per hour. Fantastic run. Peter Kapiris not far behind with a 423. A fantastic run there, Jason.
Rusty, closest race, closest pairing of the series so far here at Slamfest. Have a look at them as they go across the stripe. Just 14 1,000 separating them. The 422.2 from Phillips to the 423.6 of Peter Kapiris.
Well, Morris, first run of the day, a 466. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, look, we tried to do something a bit different. The track's not really there at the moment, so we tried something. Didn't quite work. Still spun the tyres in top gear. So we'll have a rethink and go back to our first game plan.
It's a little bit cold, not a lot of heat in the track. How do you attack that from a racing point of view?
You just got to calm the car down. That's what it's all about. You know, you get too much power in there, too much wheel speed, will spin the tyres. So you got to try and calm it all down and get it down the track.
Well, Morris, thanks for your time. Hopefully we see you later on.
Thanks, bud.
Frankie Mamone, of course, Mr. Outlaw, 10-5, coming through now as we continue with qualifying. Short, sharp burnout, Rusty, for Mamone.
Yeah, Frank might be trying something a little bit different. He really has been struggling with this rural deal. The regional tracks haven't been to his liking. Of course, that's probably got a lot to do with the small tyre under the back of that car. In this round of qualifying, he will be going up against Marcus Chambers, the Premix King Monaro. Beautiful car, this, but really highlights the body differences between the American-style cars and the Australian cars, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed it does. You look at the Nova and you see very square as opposed to the HQ that's got the rounded body shape. But Frank Mamone, he's really, as you said, struggled with some of these regional tracks, knowing that he is the quickest man on a 10.5-inch tyre, but has not been able to put the power to the ground. On the other hand, of course, Marcus Chambers, he's been plugging along very, very nicely. The Premix King HQ driver has been certainly very sharp on the tree at previous rounds, and we'll see how he goes. Qualifying, continuing along, of course, remembering that each of these drivers gets one qualifier, and then we head to round one.
As we're in pre-stage now, both cars bump towards full. You'll hear the revs start to build, and off we go. Frank Mamone out in front, no problems. Well, is there a problem? Marcus Chambers drives around him with a 4.90. Frank Mamone, more troubles from half-track on.
Yeah, absolutely. Mamone had it all over in the first part of the racetrack. You can see here on the replay, gets out and leaves the HQ standing still, but that big top-end charge from Marcus Chambers, as we see the 10.5 Nova get out sharply, but Marcus Chambers coming home is just bogs it, Rusty, off the start line. A little bit of a hop, skip and a jump in that left lane. But once he got that HQ Monaro up and running, no problems whatsoever.
None at all, as we see second-generation racer Ben Bray come through now in the Sid Chrome Tools Monaro. He loves a big burnout, Ben. He loves putting on a show for the crowd, and have a go at it all the way down nearly to the finish line. Man, oh man, John Zapier won't be outdone, though.
Absolutely not. John Zapier has taken on Benny Bray's father in burnout comps on many occasions. But we see here, side by side, they'll back it up. A great show, a great spectacle for the crowds here in Tassie this weekend. Seeing both cars burn out side by side and then back it up again. Of course, for Striker, for Fuchs, Pro Comp Electronics, really is the man to watch this weekend, John Zapier.
Yeah, he had a very, very lacklustre round in the second round at Portland. By his standards, only scored 40 points as opposed to the final round showing that we saw at round one. He's looking to lay down some numbers and really get back to the top of the tree. That's what John Zapier is all about. He's not out here just to race. He wants to get all the way up to number one. And Ben Bray, he's no pushover.
No, absolutely not. And the man knows what he's doing. Of course, campaigned top door slammer from just 17 years of age. Wog Boy, as he's known, Anthony up front. Crew chief for the CB8 Monaro of Ben Bray. Into pre-stage, they come away. Bray gets out, he's got the charge. Zap got very close to the side or the centre line, but was able to keep it in his lane. 429, 276 kilometres for Zap, and a 434 for Ben Bray.
I tell you what, that was a fantastic drive job from Ben Bray. I can't wait to see the replay on this, because if you have a look at the injector hat, the car started to turn the tyres. He never actually got full throttle the whole way down the racetrack. He was feathering the throttle, and a 434 is the result. John Zapier, whole shot off the line. He was second to the finish line, but still records that 429 to bump him all the way up to number 2 on our qualifying list.
Well, talking about keeping the butterflies open, John Zapier kept them flat pegged open, even though the car got a little loosened towards the centre line. He did not back off.
We go racing with Mark Valeri now in this absolutely beautiful HSV Monaro. I was going to call it a Commodore there for a second. He'd come after me if I did that. Test driving this car for a different owner this weekend. Obviously, the owner wanted an experienced pilot behind the wheel. Mark Valeri, one of the young guns of the Doorslammer movement in Australia. And this thing looks $1 million, doesn't it, out on the track?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. This car looks sensational. Of course, owned by one of the locals down here in Tassie. Lee Flaherty is the man that actually owns the car. But as we've discussed, Mark Valeri taking the opportunity to have a little bit of a steer.
We keep talking about the second generation racers, and Mark Balleri is no different. He is a second generation driver, of course, son of Lucky Balleri from Sydney, who had a string of very well-known door slammers in the early to mid-90s, and always had fantastically presented cars as well. This one absolutely no different.
Yeah, the Lucky's Toy range of cars. Steve Stanek was the driver. Of course, he's one of the crew, and in fact, the crew chief is young Steve. Here we go. Oh, he just smokes the tyres. A little too much power, maybe not the right clutch settings, but he decides, hey, while I'm here, let's stick the throttle full open, and runs it on through. 879 with a Ford, 232 kilometres per hour.
Yeah, when you're not paying the bills, you might as well get stuck into the throttle, eh? That's the theory. But you'll see on the replay just way too much horsepower right at the hit of the throttle. And he rolls it down track a little bit further just to make sure everything's okay, feels it out. No oil coming out, so he gets back on the throttle right there, legs it on through the top end. Chutes come out, that's most important, and an 8.79 from Mark Balleri rounds out qualifying. Well, Zap, first run of the day, a little bit wild there at the finish line.
Yeah, wanted to cross the centre line, so quick pedal, and I pulled it back into my lane, and looks like 4.29 will be good for second qualifier. We'll see who we've got, and then we'll look at the data and see if we can just tune a little bit up in it and tighten it up a bit earlier, but be careful in the area where it went crazy.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. The track's a little loose in the top end, but cold weather and all that, I think it's given a bit of grief. A couple of sprinkles of rain don't help either. By half track, I had it down to 50% throttle, so I could probably grow a set of kahunas and get that up a little bit more. But in the data, we can detune the motor, which will make the car accelerate a little bit better instead of spinning the wheels. So that'll be our aim.
So as we take a look at the qualifying results, Gary Phillips at the number 1 position with a 4.22. Peter Kabira slots into 2 with a 4.23. John Zappia, number 3, 4.29. Then Ben Bray, Russell Pavey, Tony De Felice, Morris Fabietti and Marcus Chambers round out the top 8. Stick around, we've got more action coming up after the break with round 1. Marcus Chambers is no stranger to the drag racing scene, and he takes us back to how he got started.
Well, I guess I'm like most. Fast street cars was always my thing. You know, I had some fast HQs when I was a young fella, and I had HQs in the blood, as you can see. But, you know, we started going to Heathcote Park when I was about 19, 20 years old, and just racing street cars, and then just kept going up and up and up. And I disappeared from the scene for a little while, and it sat in a shipping container for 5 years. And we finally took it back out. We pulled every nut and bolt, everything apart, pulled it down to the frame. We cut the rear off, we cut the front off. We started again, we rebuilt every single part in the car. While it looks like the same car, there ain't too many bits in it that are the same as when it finished racing a while back. But you know, we've changed pretty much everything. It's not brand new, but it's very good stuff, even though it's not the latest technology.
So what's the attraction to Slamfest?
It's just about having a bloody good time. It's a much more relaxed atmosphere here. It hasn't got that go that the Pro Series got. And look, we haven't got the greatest parts anymore, and we're not right up the top with some of those blokes. So we just like being able to come out, run, you know, and have a good time. You know, it's a family thing for us.
8th Mile Racing is all about the launch rather than the top-end speed. Does this change the way Marcus sets up the car?
We have changed a couple of things because we are racing 8th Mile, but generally I'll race anywhere. I'll race 60 feet, I'll even race if I have to run. Racing is racing, and the more we can do, the better. I think at the end of the day, quarter mile racing will still be around, but the 8th Mile, especially for these regional venues, it is a way of the future for short, sharp, entertaining race meetings. I think Slamfest fills that hole very, very well.
As we move into the first round of racing, the crowd is absolutely jam-packed in, and they can't wait to see the first round matchups. Take a look at the ladder now. We see that Gary Phillips has in fact got the bye due to being the number 1 qualifier. Felice and Fabietti, Kapiris, Balleri, Bray and Zappia and Mamone will be the first round pairings.
Yeah, some big matchups there. The big one for me is Victor and Ben Bray, but we'll get to that in just a little while. We've got the first pair of cars on the start line now. It is Tony De Felice up against the Holden Trade Club Monaro of Morris Fabietti.
What a matchup. We saw them qualify a little earlier, and now coming into the race side of things, it is all about running the quickest time and getting the win. Because, of course, progression through to the semi-final means that you not only need to win your race, but you need to be one of the top 4 quickest cars.
And that's where strategy comes into it. Gary Phillips, although he's got the bye run, does not necessarily mean that he's going through to the next round. You need to be one of the 4 quickest winners. And that's a big ask. In changing conditions, we've been going from sunlight to overcast to a little spot of rain as well today. So conditions changing very, very quickly, making life pretty difficult for these crew chiefs.
What a pair up. In qualifying, Felice went 4.60. Morris Fabietti went 4.66. Just 6/100ths of a second separating him based on the qualifying efforts.
Yeah, nice and close, and that's what we like to see. That's what Slamfest is all about. The regional track, Tasmania, doesn't see a lot of big horsepower cars, but that being said, it really is an equaliser for a lot of these guys. On paper, Morris Fabietti should have this run and done, but we don't run them on paper. That's why we run them on the track.
Well, that we do, as we get a great shot of both the cars here at TDRA Dragway. And into stage now, we can see Fabietti up on the 2-step, leaves with a great 0.23. He is way loose, tags the wall, comes in behind De Felice. What's going on?
Oh, big problems here for Morris Fabietti. You can see the chute tangled up. The car's up on its side. Oh, no, the car's upside down. That is a terrible, terrible end for Morris Fabietti here in Tasmania. The safety crews are on the scene, but that car is not in a good way.
Rusty, I've got to tell you, I have never seen anything like that ever happen on a drag strip braking area ever before.
The good news is Morris Fabietti is out of the car, out under his own power. Thankfully, it was a slow-speed accident, but a terrible, terrible end to the weekend for Morris Fabietti. Plenty of damage on that Holden Trade Club Monaro. Let's have a look at what happened.
Car gets loose at around half-track, then he just gets off it, jumps back on the loud pedal, and puts him into the wall. Now, you can see that red chute is tied up on his wing. That's Tony De Felice's parachute, and that is what's brought him unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely no fault of Tony De Felice there. You can see Morris Fabietti gets out, gets a little bit out of shape, just over near the centre line. He tries to save it, and by the time he gets that car back under control, he's got a face full of parachute and not a lot of places to go.
Well, Rusty, you see, in fact, there was nothing in it. He just got off the throttle, and when he got back on the car, it unsettled on the rear tyres, slung him out into the wall. That is a huge shame, an absolute huge shame for Fabietti. Of course, he runs with the support of the Holden Trade Club, but he really is a privateer in many, many other ways.
Yeah, you can see that replay really does tell us a lot. It was a big hit into that left-hand side wall. Thankfully, Morris is okay after that big tumble at the top end. And the safety crew is doing their job, as they always do.
And thankfully for Tony De Felice, he was fine as well. Checking out the damage, the injector hat absolutely smashed to pieces, of course, made of carbon fibre. But the easiest thing to probably break on a rollover. And we see Mary Fabietti there just making sure that her husband is A-OK. Of course, in the background, you can see some of the other races. Lucky Valeri there as well, Mark Valeri. We've got Peter Kapiris down there. An absolute devastating shame for the team Fabietti.
Yeah, the good news is the car's actually going back to the pits on all 4 wheels. It's not going back on a trailer. That is a big plus as far as the damage. Hopefully they can get that car fixed, and we'll see him back at the next round of Slamfest.
Here we go, second pairing in round 1. Russell Pavey to take on Marcus Chambers. So we have a look at the qualifying of those guys. Marcus Chambers went 4.90. And, of course, we saw Russell Pavey run a 4.49. Now, Russell Pavey, as we mentioned at the top of the show, running with the support of Ken Lowe. Now, they really have hopped this hot rod up. I mean, 4.49 is up there with the likes of, the Zappiers, the Victor Brays, the Ben Brays. All the quick guys we now see Pavey actually being able to mix it up with them in this 63 split window Corvette.
There is absolutely no shortage of horsepower in this car. He may not have as many parts as some of the big guys, but the stuff that he has got is the latest and the greatest, and he makes it work for him. That is the key, working with the bits and pieces that you've got.
Well, he's got an absolute genius on board when it comes to crew chief Ken Lowe. Marcus Chambers moving in beside him. Chambers, of course, from Victoria. He also is probably what's considered as a part-time top door slammer racer. Has raced, of course, over in WA. In fact, was the round one winner way back in 2002, 2003 over at Kwinana Motorplex. He was the top door slammer champion.
So he knows how to win. He knows how to get to the finish line first, but you've got to remember, they've got to get there quick. Chambers blows the tyres off at the hit of the throttle, and Russ Pavey goes through. A 4.56 with a 9 actually slows down a tick on his qualifying time, but is it going to be enough to get him through to the next round? That's what it's all about. Remember, quickest 4 winners.
Well, 4.50 versus a 4.40. When you're looking at the consistency from Pavey, hopefully for his sake, it is enough to get him in. And Marcus Chambers, well, it all went pear-shaped, as you can see off the start line. And from there, the Corvette was able to put the power to the ground and drive it to the stripe. Number 1 qualifier now, Gary Phillips. We saw Phillips top qualify with a 4.222. And boy, hasn't he got some credibility about him. 14 times Australian top alcohol champion. And of course, he's won a top door slammer championship as well. First drag racer to run over 400 kilometres in a door slammer, and is currently the 2nd quickest Slamfest driver on the tour.
Yeah, very, very impressive stats when you look at it, and that is why he's the number 1 qualifier. He went out, he's got a lot of experience on these regional tracks, went a 4.22, as you said, put him at the top of the tree. Now, he's got 2 ways of looking at it here. Remember, although he is guaranteed the win, he still needs to be one of the quickest 4 winners to go through to the next round. So he's got the opportunity to throw everything at the track, but as you can see, lots of cloud cover starting to come over the racetrack, the track cooling down, conditions really starting to change here, and for crew chief Shane Phillips, this is going to be a real challenge for him, trying to set the car up for the changeable conditions here at TDRA Raceway.
So Phillips just coming in. Now, remembering, of course, he is on a solo, but he must run one of the 4th quickest times in this session. Running for Lucas Oil Products. He is a professional drag racer by trade. So Phillips will be putting everything he can into this run. Bumps into full stage. Oh, car looks very strong, Rusty. Very strong indeed. What does he come up with? 4.174, 293 kilometres per hour.
Yeah, fantastic run there from Gary Phillips. We knew right from the hit of the throttle that is the quickest 60-foot time that we have seen all day. 1.04 with a 5 to the 60 and a 4.17. I think he's pretty much guaranteed his place in the top 4 so far.
So 4th pairing in round 1 of eliminations. Peter Kapiris will be taking on Mark Balleri. Balleri on the right-hand side of the screen. Kapiris in the Saratoga. It's a Dodge or Chrysler Saratoga on the left. Commonly known as a big, bad wedge.
Absolutely, that's what it's designed for. Of course, aerodynamically tested and designed to run as quick as possible over the 1/8 and 1/4 miles. You can see Narelle out in front, who's been with Peter Kapiris for a long, long time, been around the drag racing scene for as long as I can remember. And Peter Kapiris, well, he's a guy who's doing very, very well in the Slamfest series at the moment. He's one of the regulars on the scene. He's up against Mark Balleri, who's driving an unfamiliar car this weekend. It's going to be a tough ask for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Balleri has got to put a good stout run on the board to think about mixing it up. Mark Brew, as you can see, the man with the spray can, just putting a bit of fuel down into the injector hat to stop it from freezing up. In conditions, you'll see these injector hats get ice all over the top of them if they run that cool with the methanol fuel. But the Kapiris brothers racing Saratoga went 4.23. So he's got a handle on the track straight up. Let's see how they go. And 1.48 reaction to Kapiris. Problems for Balleri and straight down the middle for Kapiris. 4.18. 287 kilometres per hour.
Wow, fantastic run for Peter Kapiris. He didn't make it easy for himself, though. He really got close to that centre line, right at the finish line. Very late on the chutes as well, but there's plenty of space here at TDRA Dragway to get that thing stopped. Unfortunately for Mark Valeri, the car did exactly what it did in the qualifying round, smoked the tyres right at the hit of the throttle, and that is not going to win you any races at all.
Well, I've got to tell you, Rusty, from that angle, I thought he was straight down the groove, but you have a look at the replay from behind, and he really did get out near that centre line. Here comes Victor Bray. Victor Bray will be taking on son Ben Bray, the kid as he's known. And we'll see. He's no kid any longer. He's a man with his own family. Great in-car shots. You can see the smoke from the rear tyres just pluming in and filling the cabin absolutely full.
Well, if you ask Ben or Victor, if the cabin's not full of smoke, it's not a good burnout. That is the golden rule. But Ben Bray, you can see right at the finish line, that car rolled all the way down there. Nice big smoky burnouts. Marie Bray always looking on with some trepidation when Victor races. Ben, of course, when you've got the two closest family members on track at the same time, I guess it does get the heart rate up a little bit, makes you a little bit nervous, doesn't it, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. Watching both her husband and son go head to head. Now, I did mention a little earlier, of course, Victor Bray, 6 times Australian top Doorslammer champion. He's held multiple world record speeds over the time. But, of course, Benny Bray, no pushover. He's been a junior dragster champion. He's been a top Doorslammer champion and a top alcohol champ as well.
Yeah, he's got the runs on the board. It really is a tough ask. Victor's been out of sorts, you know, for a couple of years now, but he's really starting to get back on top of this combination in the big 57 Chevy. And I think he's going to give Ben a pretty good race here. Both cars in free stage now. You'll hear the revs start to come up, and we will go racing with the Bray boys.
Which of the Brays will make it through to the semi-finals? Only one can go through. Victor Bray to the left of screen. Ben Bray to the right. Have a look at this one. Straight down, side by side. 4:27.7 for Benny, 4:31 for Victor. Ben Bray will progress through to the semi-final.
Yeah, I thought Victor Bray had this one. He actually had the quickest 60-foot time that we've seen all day in Slamfest, 1:04.1, which is quicker than what Gary Phillips went when he went 4:17. So the car just went away from him at the top end of the racetrack, which is a real shame. But Ben Bray, pretty hard to compete with that. A 4:27 will put him through to the semi-finals.
Well, we go to another replay, and yeah, side by side, it is Sid Chrome left and right. Chutes come out together, and it will be the kid who will move his way through. So, John Zapier and Frank Mamone will be the next pairing, in fact, the last pairing to come forward here in round 1 for Slamfest.
John Zapier in the Fuchs Oils Pro Comp Inaro, a guy who grew up racing on these types of tracks, the regional tracks. He could get this HQ down a dirt track. I'm pretty sure he could, because he has just got so much experience on these types of race surfaces. He's up against Frank Mamone. We spoke about him a little earlier, struggling with that 10.5 wide tyre under the back of that Nova, and I don't think things are going to get any easier for him here.
No, I would agree. Of course, if there's one person that you would probably not want to meet on the strip when it comes to round 1, it is this man, John Zapier. Of course, from Western Australia, he's been doing the full Slamfest tour, and in fact did very well at round 1 at Heathcote. Was runner-up, but then round 2 at Portland was out in the first round.
Yeah, it's unusual for John Zapier to go out so early. We're not used to seeing it. But, hey, that's the competitiveness of this Slamfest series. That's what it's all about. You've got half the track that you usually do to run those slammers on. Anything can happen, and it usually does.
Well, Frank Mamone, Mr. Outlaw 10-5, he will be trying his very, very best to put a stop to John Zapier here in round 1. We saw Frank Mamone run 5:45 in the first round of qualifying, and now he has to hope that everything comes together up on the 2-step rev limiter. It doesn't. Zap, how does he go this time around? Shoots out at the 8th, 4:1.61, 305 kilometres per hour. insane speed there, Rusty.
Well, that's our first 190 miles per hour speed of the day. John Zappia, low ET so far, 4.16 with a 1. Frank Mamone had his problems right off the start line. You can see the car, it just sort of died. I don't know whether it threw a blower belt or what went wrong there for Frank, but I'll tell you what, John Zappia was long gone.
Absolutely. So the 4161 at 190 miles per hour or 305 kilometres is, of course, low ET and high speed of the round so far. As we take a look at the results from round 1, John Zappia was the fastest, 4161. Gary Phillips with a 4174 was second fastest. Peter Kapiris was third with a 4188. Ben Bray, number 4, with a 4277. And even though Tony DeFelice and Russell Pavey got the win, unfortunately, they weren't in the top 4 quickest. So we see Gary Phillips taking on Peter Kapiris in the semi-final, and it will be John Zappia taking on Ben Bray.
Yeah, look, after it started turning the tyres, you really ain't got much time to do anything. So it started turning the tyres and it just flicks around hard left. I hit the wall and I thought, oh no, you know, but it all pretty salvageable from there. It bounced me across into Tony's lane, and then the next thing is I'm looking at the back of a red Camaro, and I thought, last thing I need to do is to damage Tony's car and also my own. So I flicked it across to try and get back in my own lane, and I thought, oh well, it's all settled down. We got away with that one, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose. It's picked the back of my car up and virtually skull dragged me down the track in Tony's lane.
I knew something was amiss because the rear end of my car was getting dragged. So I was trying to correct it and thinking, what's going on? Then I heard Morris's zing and pop. So then I thought, okay, hang on. Something's happened to Morris. I'm trying to correct it, and all I could do was go sideways and end up in the grass.
Coming up after the break, we move to semi-final action here at TDRA Dragway in Tasmania. Gary Phillips is one of the most respected drivers in the Australian drag racing scene, and if you've ever wondered what the crews have to do on a 3,500 horsepower machine between rounds, who better to ask than Gary himself?
Yeah, the normal deal is, first thing you do is get the car up on the Projects, jack it up, drain the oil. Some guys drain it, throw it out. Some guys drain it, put it back in the tank again because they have dry sump systems on them. Then the crew starts getting the rocket spark plugs out, rocket covers off. That way, then you can go and set the valves, adjust them. So check the springs. Maybe depends how much you wrang its neck. The clutch is usually the last thing that's adjusted after it's cooled down. Some guys change the clutch between runs. We don't. We try and do the whole event without changing the clutch, so it has once it takes a set, it's good, but some guys got different attitudes towards that. In the process of doing the valves, you might leak the engine down to see if there's any leakage in the valves or in the pistons or whatever. Look at the spark plugs, that's a telltale as well. On the 8th mile stuff, some guys check the bearings between runs. It depends on how short the fuse is for your particular tune-up. We don't check the bearings. That's not saying we're standing on it, it's just that we choose to run the car a little bit different to some of the other guys. The computer's downloaded, or the data acquisition unit is downloaded, then whoever's making the tune-up call has time to go and have a look at that. Pretty much go through and have a look. The biggest parts killers on these things are probably valve springs and the clutch. So you just have to pay attention to detail with little tails off the end of the springs in the oil. You'll see that people go, or Debbie goes around with a little magnet and looks for broken tails and stuff like that. The quality control on the springs that we get these days is pretty good, so you don't usually have that trouble. That's usually a harmonic problem. When with the camshafts and the valve springs that are available, it's touch wood, that's under control.
So Gary Phillips will take on Peter Kapiris and John Zappia will take on Ben Bray, with the winning pair moving through to the final.
And the crowd here at TDRA Dragway absolutely on the edge of their seats with anticipation. The first one will be Gary Phillips and Peter Kapiris, the second and third quickest cars that we had in the first round of racing.
Yeah, that's right, Rusty. Gary Phillips running 4:17 and Peter Kapiris running 4:18 in the first round.
Well, on paper, these guys are very, very close, but Gary Phillips, did he have the edge in that first round? Had the bye run, was able to try a few different things. Does that give him a bit of an edge coming into the semi-final round here?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, he had the 104 60 foot, which is the quickest, but then Peter Kapiris had a better reaction. So if you're to couple both the ETs and then subtract the reactions, I think we're in for one real close race.
Well, Gary Phillips, one of the true professionals of the Slamfest series, running the Lucas Oils Studebaker. As you said, you touched on it earlier on in eliminations, one of the most experienced lone alcohol racers this country has ever seen. He's a multiple-time national champion, and Peter Kapiris is no pushover. He's won the Top Doorslammer Championship twice as well.
Absolutely. The fruit and veggie wholesaler from Victoria is Kapiris, and as I mentioned a little earlier, also the Lucas Oils team for Gary Phillips. He is a professional drag racer by trade. Helps build other people's motors and certainly imports a lot of go-fast parts from the USA. Mark Brew up front doing the final adjustments on the Dodge Saratoga mountain motor. And you would say that this is undoubtedly going to be the edge of your seat style racing, Rusty.
Absolutely. Those two guys on the top of their game. We saw that in the first round. Both guys running in the 4.1 second zone. As we said, on paper, it is a close one, but we don't race them on paper, we race them on the track.
Well, Phillips has also got the kilometre advantage at this stage. He ran quicker and faster, so we're just about to see it unfold right here before our very eyes. Both cars into full stage now. Equal reactions, a 1-1-2 to a 1-2-3. It is Kapiris who streaks away and goes 4-1-5, 283 kilometres. 4-1-5 is in fact the quickest we've seen today so far.
Low ET of the day for Peter Kapiris. He has got that thing on song. As we have a look at the replay, well, a little bit of a bobble off the start line. Not the cleanest run for Peter Kapiris, but he still gets the W. Gary Phillips, he wasn't far behind with a 4.26, but dropped off from his earlier pace of a 4.17.
Yeah, absolutely. Very similar in the 60 foots as well, a 105 to a 103. And we can see Gary Phillips's car moving around. You can't even see Peter Kapiris's car out the left window. So that was a super close race indeed.
Yeah, both cars moving around a little bit on the top end, but you expect that on these regional tracks. As we move on to the next one, this is a big matchup. John Zappia in the Pro Comp Electronics Monaro taking on Benny Bray in the Sidchrome Tools CV8 Monaro.
So Anthony Vlodman's giving the signal by dropping his arm for Ben to start the burnout, and you can see just how much these cars walk around using every part of the track throughout not only the burnout, but of course the run down the 8th. So recapping, of course, once again, Ben Bray went 4.27 in round 1, and we saw Zappia deep into the 4.16 region.
Well, up until the last run that we had down the track, that was low ET for the day. So John Zappia, he's got this thing tuned up. He knows how to get it down. He's had the only speed that we've seen over 190 miles per hour so far on 190.00. That's actually nearly 8 miles per hour quicker than we've seen any other car go today.
Yeah, that's right. Really, really dominant in that top end. But I think when you look at these 60 foot, it does not so much labour, but it's a lot slower than many of the other races. But he's got that top end advantage.
Now, you want to talk about rivalries. The Bray and Zappia rivalry over the last 20 years has been absolutely huge. Not just with Ben Bray, but also his dad, Victor. Ben's really picked up the torch and carried it for the last few years. And I don't think you'll find too many rivalries that are more intense than the Bray-Zappia rivalry of the past 20 years. It has just been an absolute nail-biter.
Yeah, it certainly has, and it's culminating right here in the semi-finals. Remember, the winner of this pair will, in fact, meet Peter Kapiris in the final. Who will it be? John Zappia left of screen or Ben Bray right of screen in the Sidchrome CV8 Monaro? That's Benny Bray right there. Have a look at the technical aspects of inside a top door slammer. And you don't get any greater shot than this, Rusty. Straight over the injector hat. Oh, runs it out the back door. What a close race. 4:26.6 to a 4:1.20. Well, we saw Peter Kapiris go into the 1.5s, and John Zappia says, no, that can't happen. I need to have that quickest ET back. 4.12 to a 4.26.
Well, 4.12, that's low ET by 300ths of a second. You want to talk about days in drag racing. 300ths of a second is massive in 8th mile racing. Ben Bray certainly gave him a race. The margin of victory was very, very close. But unfortunately for Ben, he's on the trailer. The Bray name is out of racing today. And the final round will be John Zappia taking on Peter Kapiris, the two quickest cars that we've had all day long. That's the way it's meant to be.
Well, the West Aussie and Zappia taking on the Victorian Peter Kapiris. It will be a showdown to stick around for here at Slamfest.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome run. A bit hard to stop that one. We had to go down a little bit further to the next exit, but the Fuchs Pro Comp Monaro was flying on that one and got the job done, and we're in the final.
I did notice a little bit of hesitation going into stage between you and Benny. Were you hanging out on purpose, or was it?
I wasn't hanging out, but I went in first and I was revving my engine, and he seemed to take a little while, but it wasn't excessive, so I'm prepared for that sort of tactics, so it's all good.
Well, Peter, going to another final round here in Tasmania, you must be pretty happy.
Oh, mate, I'm always happy to go to a final. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I've got Johnny's sort of on the money. That round we went the quickest here, obviously, then he had to come out and beat it, so obviously he's on his game. But like I said before earlier, you know, the track has got more, and it is getting a lot better, so I mean, this one's do or die. You just throw everything at it and hang on and, you know, hope for the best.
Well, it's going to take a little more than hoping for the best. Of course, Zappia and Kapiris, these guys have faced off against each other on numerous occasions as well.
Well, this is the way it's meant to be. We've got the two quickest cars that we've got on the grounds here today, Peter Kapiris and John Zappia. This is going to be a final round for the ages.
What a classic battle, 4-1 to a 4-1 when you talk 8th mile times. That's what they both ran in the semis. And I hope, Rusty, we see a similar performance as it should be.
Well, after talking to both drivers in the last round, they both said that there was more left in this track. John Zappia in particular said that he was underestimating it. He thinks it's got plenty more left in it. So that's a big tick in the box for the TDRA Racing Association. Of course, they've done a fantastic job getting this track up to Slamfest specifications, and it's really paid off with the times that we've been seeing today.
Yeah, definitely, Rusty. We've seen, some stout 4-1 second passes, but, I mean, to hold 190 miles per hour is just sensational.
Absolutely, and looking at the Kapiris crew as we come back to the line on board with him, one guy that we need to talk about is Jeff Cuttajar. He's a long-time crew member of Peter Kapiris, been with him forever, one of his best mates, and it's just great to see the kind of camaraderie that we see in the Slamfest series.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, the Kapiris team, you see a range of people that have in fact been with him for many, many years, including, of course, Jeff Cuttajar, as you mentioned, Wayne Whitmore, Narelle Ruffley that backs up Peter Kapiris. So a whole host of people that certainly bring this team to the track, not just the driver.
Yeah, John Zappia no different. He's got a long-time crew on board with that car, one of the most well-rehearsed crews that you will find in the pit area. But that's not what it's about right now. It comes down to these two drivers, who can be first off the line, who can be first to the finish line. It's going to be a driver's race, I can tell you that right now.
Well, thumbs up from Mark Brew. We get set, and we are in for one hell of a final.
Well, we're not far away from a start. Peter Kapiris edging towards the start line. There's nothing the crews can do now. It's all in the driver's hands. You'll hear the revs start to build, and we will go racing.
Peter Kapiris in, now Zappia in as well. 158 to a 106, advantage to Kapiris off the start line, but it's all over. Zappia runs away with low ET of the day, 4:07.7, 308 kilometres per hour.
Wow, top speed, low ET in the last run of the day. Fantastic job by the Fuchs Pro Comp Monaro. And I'll tell you what, have a look at the camaraderie up there on the start line. Both crews all very friendly in the pits, giving each other a hug and a congratulations. But Peter Kapiris turned the tyres at half-track, got out of shape, and you can see John Zappia go streaking off into the distance.
Well, the in-car shot from Kapiris' car showed just the speed at 308. Watch as we go from reverse cam. That thing is crazy. You see exactly how quickly these top door slammers accelerate away from the start line. Again, we look to Peter Kapiris got loose at around about 100 foot out from the Christmas tree, and it was Zappia all over from start to finish.
So let's take a look at the points after round 3. Peter Kapiris is on top with 245. John Zappia closely behind, only 5 points off with 240. Ben Bray in third, back on 210, followed by Russ Pavey, Gary Phillips, Morris Fabietti, Victor Bray, and Marcus Chambers rounding out the top 8 on 120 points.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we just give it a bit too much. It got out on me, and yeah, it's just I couldn't bring it back. I had to let it go.
Just talk us through the run. Did it shake right at the start, or what did the car do?
It got out just before I hit second gear. It just shook, went over to the right, and I mean, if I stayed in, I would have crossed the centre line anyway, and it's just silly anyway, so.
Well, it's tightened things up at the top of the point score for the championship.
Yeah, it'd be real interesting. You'd be a little bit in front of me, I dare say. So.
Yeah, I didn't know where he was. It was just it was using up a bit of track, and it was blurry, and it was just, yeah, it was fast.
Now it's tightened things up at the top of the championship. Are you going to continue to run the rest of the rounds?
Yeah, no, we're going to Mildura and then wherever else we end up. But Perth next week, and Peter's 70 points ahead on the quarter mile series. So yeah, we're going to have a battle right through to the end of the season.
That wraps up all the action here in Tasmania. Next round, we'll see the Slamfest series tackle the Sunset Strip at Mildura. On behalf of myself, Jason Bean, and Rusty Gregory, we'll see you next time.